The container of homemade lasagna was still warm in my hands as I walked down the hallway toward my husband's office. 3 years of marriage, and I still brought him lunch every Wednesday. Our little tradition that his secretary always smiled at. "He's in with Mr. Castellano," she said, barely looking up from her screen. "But go right in. They're just talking numbers." I should have knocked. Looking back, that simple courtesy would have saved me from the truth. But I was balancing the food in my purse, and the door was slightly ajar, so I pushed it open with my shoulder. "Need at least 2 million for the Singapore expansion." That was Victor Castellano, my husband Derek's business partner. "The merger opportunity won't wait." "We don't have that kind of liquid capital," Derek replied. I could see him through the crack, running his hands through his hair the way he did when stressed. "No, but your wife's aunt does." "What's she worth again? 8 million? 10. I froze in the doorway, hidden by the partially open door. 12, last I heard, Derek said. "But Aunt Miriam's healthy as a horse." "She's 87, Derek. How healthy can she be? Besides, from what you've told me, your wife is the only niece. The only family, really." "Izzy adores her," Derek said, and something in his tone made my stomach clench. "They have tea every Sunday." "Perfect. Keep encouraging that. When the time comes, which, let's face it, won't be long, you convince her to invest the inheritance. Tell her it's for your future, for the kids you're planning. Women eat that stuff up. I don't know, Vic Izzy's smart about money. She'll want to see business plans, projections. So we'll make them. Inflate the numbers a bit. By the time she realizes the expansion isn't as profitable as we promised, the money will be tied up in the business. She can't pull it out without destroying her husband's company. Would she do that to you?" Derek was quiet for a moment. "No, she wouldn't. There you go. 2 million for Singapore, another 2 for the European offices. We restructure the company holdings, make sure our personal assets are protected, and if things go south, they won't. But if they do, the debt stays with the corporation. We walk away clean, maybe buy back the assets for pennies on the dollar. Meanwhile, we've used her money to build our empire." "Our empire," Derek repeated. "I like the sound of that. Just keep her focused on babies and Sunday tea. How hard can it be? You've kept her in the dark about the Brennan deal." "The Brennan deal? What Brennan deal?" "That was different," Derek said. "That was just creative accounting. That was fraud, buddy, but who's counting? The point is, your sweet little wife has no idea what we're really building here. And by the time Aunt Miriam kicks the bucket, we'll be ready. Singapore office, here we come." They laughed. Actually laughed about my aunt dying and stealing my inheritance. I backed away silently, leaving the lasagna on the floor by the door. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, but I didn't call Aunt Miriam. I called Harrison Blackwood, her estate lawyer. "Izzy." He sounded surprised. "Is everything all right? Is Miriam?" "She's fine," I whispered, hurrying toward the elevator. "But I need to ask you something. Hypothetically, if Aunt Miriam wanted to change her will, how would she do that?" "Well, she'd need to come to my office, sign new documents." "Why? Has she mentioned?" "No. Different question. The inheritance she's leaving me, is it really 12 million? Harrison was quiet for a moment. "Izzy, you know I can't discuss the specifics of your aunt's will. Even with me? The beneficiary? Especially with you. Until the will is executed, those details are confidential. Your aunt's wishes were very specific about that." "I understand. One more hypothetical. If someone was planning to defraud a beneficiary, to manipulate them into bad investments, what would you advise?" "I'd advise that beneficiary to be very careful who they trust, and perhaps to have a conversation with their aunt about protective measures." "Thank you, Harrison." I sat in my car in the parking garage, processing what I'd learned. My husband, the man I'd pledged my life to, was planning to steal my inheritance. An inheritance that might not even be what he thought it was. But the Brennan deal, what was that about? Instead of going home, I drove to my aunt's house in Riverside Heights. The Victorian mansion had been in our family for generations, and Miriam maintained it like a museum. I found her in the garden, tending to her roses despite her age. "Isabella, it's not Sunday. Is everything all right?" I hugged her carefully, breathing in her familiar lavender scent. "Can we talk inside?" Over tea in her pristine parlor, I told her everything. Her expression never changed, but I saw her hands tighten on her china cup. "I see," she said when I finished. "And what do you plan to do?" "I don't know. Confront him? Divorce him? Pretend I never heard anything and protect myself financially. All reasonable options. She set down her cup with a delicate clink. But first, I think you should know something. Come with me. She led me to her study, where she opened an ancient safe behind a portrait of my grandfather. Inside were stacks of documents. Your inheritance, she said, pulling out a folder. Would you like to know what you're really getting? Harrison said. Harrison says what I tell him to say. The truth is, there is no $12 million, Isabella. There never was. My heart sank. But Derek thinks. People think many things. The truth is far more interesting. She handed me the folder. Open it. Inside were deeds. Dozens of them. Property titles, business holdings, mineral rights. I don't understand. Your grandfather was a very smart man. He knew money could be stolen, manipulated, lost to bad investments or greedy relatives. So he put the family wealth into things harder to liquidate, harder to steal. I flipped through the papers. Commercial buildings, apartment complexes, patents, royalty agreements. How much is all this worth? On paper? Perhaps $2 million. In reality? The annual income from rents, royalties, and dividends is approximately $800,000. After taxes and maintenance, you'd net about $500,000 yearly. Forever. But everyone thinks. Everyone thinks what I wanted them to think. Including, apparently, your husband. She smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. The 12 million figure came from a newspaper article 20 years ago, wildly speculating about my wealth after I sold one property. I never corrected it. Amazing how greed makes people believe what they want to believe. So Derek is planning to steal an inheritance that doesn't exist? Oh, it exists. Just not in the form he expects. These holdings can't be sold without triggering massive tax penalties and legal complications. They're structured to provide income, not capital. Your husband could convince you to sign over every deed, and he still couldn't access quick money for his expansion. I laughed. I couldn't help it. The irony was too perfect. There's more, Miriam said. The Brennan deal your husband mentioned? I know about it. You do. Thomas Brennan is an old friend. When your husband's company mysteriously won a contract they weren't qualified for, Thomas did some digging. Your husband and his partner submitted fraudulent documents, inflated their capabilities, lied about previous projects. Thomas has been building a case. Why didn't you tell me? I was waiting for the right moment. Or rather, waiting to see if you'd discover your husband's true nature on your own. She patted my hand. I'm glad you did. It shows strength. What do I do now? Whatever you want, my dear. But if you're asking for advice, let them hang themselves. That night, I went home and played the perfect wife. Derek came home late, full of apologies and explanations about client meetings. I served dinner, asked about his day, smiled at all the right moments. Actually, he said over dessert, I've been thinking. We should spend more time with your aunt. She's getting older, and you'll regret it if we don't make the most of our time together. I finished sweetly. Exactly. Maybe we could do more than just Sunday tea. That's thoughtful of you. I'll ask her. 3 weeks passed. I documented everything. Every conversation about Aunt Miriam, every mention of inheritance, every lie about the business. Derek and Victor grew bolder, showing me fake projections for their Singapore expansion, talking about how investing in family was the smartest financial move. Then Aunt Miriam played her part perfectly. She called me one afternoon, knowing Derek was home. Isabella, dear, I'm updating some paperwork with Harrison. Nothing serious, just some formalities. But I wanted you to know you're still my primary beneficiary. The full 12 million, of course. I put her on speaker, watching Derek's eyes light up. Oh, Aunt Miriam, I don't care about the money. I just want you healthy. Nonsense. It's important you know what's coming. Derek should be prepared too. Managing that much wealth is a responsibility. After she hung up, Derek was practically vibrating with excitement. 12 million confirmed. Izzy, we could do so much with that money. Well, your money, of course. But imagine the life we could build. The business opportunities. For our future children. There it was. The script Victor had given him. Speaking of opportunities, I said carefully, I've been thinking about that Singapore expansion you mentioned. Maybe I should look at the business plan. His smile was like Christmas morning. Really? You'd consider investing. If the numbers make sense. After all, it would be for our future. He kissed me then, and it tasted like betrayal. The next day, I met with Thomas Brennan. Your aunt said you'd be calling, he said, sliding a thick folder across his desk. This is everything we have on the fraud. Your husband cost my company nearly $1 million. And you haven't pressed charges? Miriam asked me to wait. Said you deserved to know first. But my patience is running thin. Give me 2 weeks? He agreed. I spent those 2 weeks being the perfect potential investor. I asked to see financial statements, met with accountants, even toured the office space they wanted to expand into. Derek and Victor presented increasingly elaborate plans, each more fictional than the last. With your investment, Victor told me over lunch, we could triple revenue within 18 months. That's impressive. And my $12 million would be secured. Absolutely. Corporate bonds, preferred stock. Ironclad. Ironclad lies. The trap was set. All I needed was for them to spring it. Aunt Miriam cooperated beautifully, mentioning feeling unwell during Sunday tea. Nothing serious, just fatigue. But enough to make Derek start pushing harder. I think we should formalize the investment structure now, he said that night. Just in case. It would give your aunt peace of mind knowing your future is secure. You're probably right. Draw up the papers. The documents arrived 2 days later. Professional, detailed, and completely fraudulent. They'd created an entire fictional expansion plan, complete with forged letters of intent from international partners. I photographed every page. This looks wonderful, I told Derek. But I should probably have a lawyer review it. Just to be safe. Of course. But maybe not mention the inheritance part? We wouldn't want anyone thinking we're counting on. On Aunt Miriam dying? Of course not. I took the documents to Harrison Blackwood. Then to Thomas Brennan. Then to the FBI's white-collar crime division. Turns out, interstate fraud involving forged international business documents is a federal offense. Who knew? The arrests came on a Tuesday. I was having tea with Aunt Miriam when Derek called from custody. Izzy, there's been a misunderstanding. They're saying the Singapore plans were fraudulent. You have to tell them. Tell them what, Derek? That you were planning to steal my fictional inheritance. Silence. Then, you knew? I knew everything. The $12 million that doesn't exist. The Brennan fraud. The plan to convince me to invest in your expansion built on lies. I can explain. Explain to the judge. Oh, and Derek? The divorce papers will be waiting when you make bail. I hung up. Aunt Miriam raised her teacup in a toast. Well played, my dear. I learned from the best. Derek got 7 years. Victor got 10, he had priors. The business was liquidated to pay restitution to Brennan's company and the other victims they'd defrauded over the years. I kept the house. Derek had put it in my name for tax purposes. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Aunt Miriam updated her will. The real one. The one with all those boring, income-generating properties that couldn't be quickly liquidated. For your future children, she said with a wink. Should you choose to have them. With someone who loves you, not your imaginary millions. What about the $12 million everyone thinks you have? Oh, I'll leave that to charity. Can't have people thinking I lied all these years. We laughed over our tea. 2 women who'd learned that sometimes the best inheritance isn't money at all. It's wisdom. And the strength to use it. Derek writes sometimes from prison. Long letters about how sorry he is, how he's changed, how he's realized money doesn't matter. I forward them to his next mark, because men like Derek never change. They just find new people to fool. But not me. Not anymore. The inheritance I received from Aunt Miriam wasn't what Derek expected. It was better. It was freedom from a man who saw me as a means to an end, and the knowledge that I was strong enough to fight back. And that's worth more than $12 million any day.